In many African countries, it's normal to see chickens roaming around and it's normal to kill and butcher a chicken. But in South Africa, that is not really the case. South Africa is a country where a lot of things are already pre-packaged and pre-processed, such as chicken. And so when I came back to Cameroon, it was such a challenge for me. Having been out of the country in South Africa for so long, I struggled with actually killing and butchering a chicken.
Get the food and all. Where?
I have to take my picture. I must hold it foul. We have a live chicken and I'm actually terrified. I don't know what I'm going to do. Normally you will find live chicken in the market. You have processed chicken in cold stores, but it is not the norm. There are also people in the market that are, that can kill your chicken for you. Wow, that sounds vulgar. So I think Dula is going to help me with this chicken because it's moving. Which brings me to the point of this video. After receiving quite good reactions from my previous video sharing what other Africans can learn from South Africans, I decided to roll out a series sharing what is so different in other African countries compared to South Africa. Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Right now I am on my way to buy drinking water. Yes, you heard me right, to buy drinking water. We buy drinking water in Cameroon, which got me thinking about the different ways that South Africa is different from Cameroon. Based on how my last video did, I felt like I need to give you guys a little bit more insight and perhaps take you around Cameroon to show you what is so different between these two different countries. Wow, there's a lot of difference in one sentence. To take you guys with me around town, so stay put because we have a lot to see, a lot to discuss and a lot to unravel. So our first stop is at a chantier. A chantier is what we call an uncompleted building that is still undergoing construction. So the other difference between Cameroon and South Africa is that in Cameroon we build our own houses. Majority of people, even in the villages, they buy a piece of land and they build their own house. But you find that in South Africa, there's already a lot of property that has already been built, especially in the major cities. So people buy houses, they do more of buying of ready-made houses. And then South Africans do construct, but in the rural areas, there is some construction that has started taking place. People are building in the rural areas, but in Cameroon, it is nationwide. Everybody builds. People prefer to own their own houses, so it is very rare that you will find, selling of houses and things like that in Cameroon.
A bedroom, it's a master's bedroom. This is the bath.
People would rather buy a piece of land and build their own house than buy a ready-made house. And then in Cameroon, what also happens is that houses remain with families, right? You can have a family home. That home would stay for generations and generations, 30 years, 40 years, and that home remains with one family. People don't normally sell their family homes. So that's a big difference because in South Africa, people sell homes all the time. They're not so, I don't know if it's sentimental. Yeah, you can have maybe 10 people who have stayed in the same home over the years, but in Cameroon, that's not the case. When you build your house, it's your house practically forever, I guess. Corn season is upon us, although this corn is not yet ready, but how many more weeks before the corn will be ready?
Like 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
In Cameroon, a lot of people grow their own crops. Most people will have a farm in their backyard or have a farm where they can go to. People have land and they can plant their own crops in their farms. Whereas in South Africa, I find that there's a lot of supermarket purchasing. So you will find that even in the rural areas in South Africa, you have supermarkets where they can go and buy what they want. So agriculture is not something that is so much ingrained in the people as it is in Cameroonians. In Cameroon, it's a normal thing to hear somebody say, okay, this weekend I'm going to my farm, or I'm going to the farm, or this corn is from the farm, this beans is from the farm. Whereas in South Africa, things are more or less in the supermarkets. In South Africa, you have what you call the taxi ranks, and the combis take passengers and drop at taxi ranks and also pick up passengers from taxi ranks. Whereas in Cameroon, there are not taxi ranks as such, but a taxi, like the yellow taxi that you would break, you can break a taxi anyway, and that taxi can take you exactly to where you're going to. Builder also added, it depends on how much you pay, obviously, but taxis generally are not very expensive in Cameroon, right?
Yeah, they're not very expensive. We have a taxi drop in Cameroon, specifically in Yaoundé, where I am right now is 250 francs. Yeah.
And we have your bikes, and I'm sure you have seen them all over my videos. We have the bikes here, which people can also use if you don't want to use a taxi. But in South Africa, there are no bikes. There are no bikes. There are no Okadas. In Nigeria, you call them Okada.
And in case you didn't notice, we drive on the left side in Cameroon, while in South Africa, they drive on the right side.
I was 2 years old here. I think I was 2, and I was in school at 2 years old, and this was in Cameroon. In Cameroon, we actually start school at 2 years old. We start nursery school at 2 years old. This was my graduation. I think I was 3 years old here. And so you start school at 2. Whereas in South Africa, officially, they start grade 1 at 6 years old. Whereas in Cameroon, we start class 1 at 4 years old. And the major difference as well lies in the high school education. In Cameroon, you have 7 years of high school education. Whereas in South Africa, you have 5 years of high school education. So at the end of the day, in both countries, you do complete secondary or high school education rather at 18 years old. So both do complete at 18 years old. In Cameroon, we start school earlier, but we have 2 more years in high school, as opposed to South Africa, where they start school later, but they don't have 2 extra years in high school. Remember I told you corn season is upon us. It is normal to see people sell corn and other snacks on the side of the road, and in Cameroon these are more or less the kind of street snacks that we have. We don't have a lot of processed foods in terms of franchises like KFC, McDonald's that you have in South Africa. They do not exist here in Cameroon.
Run.
If you go to Cameroonian restaurants as well, you will mostly find home-cooked meals like the traditional meals we eat in Cameroon that do better than other foods like pizzas, burgers, and things like that. So Cameroonians like to eat home meals, and that goes for our snacks as well.
Oh guys, mosquitoes are biting me. Okay, so in Cameroon, guys, we have over 247 languages, official languages, our tribal languages. So you can imagine the level of diversity in terms of language, guys. Do you know what it means to have close to 250 languages in one country? So when I was in South Africa, forgive me if I'm scratching myself, mosquitoes are dealing with me out here. So when I was in South Africa, they will always ask me, oh, why don't you speak Cameroon? And I'm like, where do I even begin? How do I even speak Cameroon? So the way it works in Cameroon is that the 250 languages represent 250 tribes. Whereas in South Africa, you have 11 official languages which are spoken nationwide. One thing that people always get confused with, regarding Cameroon is that they say, oh, Cameroon is a French-speaking country, So our official, as in the national languages, are English and French, the ones that are your 2 major languages, and they had to choose English and French because obviously there are 250 tribal languages. I know that South Africans always used to tell me that, oh, why do you guys have to choose your colonizers' language? But when you have 250 languages in one country, how do you pick one? You pick the one that people speak the most. So that's why they had to go with English and French. But the other language which is spoken widely in Cameroon is Pidgin English, and Pidgin English is also spoken in Nigeria, it's spoken in Ghana. So I think Pidgin English, I feel like it should be a national language as well because it's spoken by both the French-speaking Cameroonians and the English-speaking Cameroonians. I am from Oshe, that's the name of my tribe. It's actually a village. These tribes are villages with physical locations. I'm from Oshe, and we say Aniye, say how are you, and then you say Amuchi. That means I am fine.
In my language, you say good morning. It is Njilani.
Njilani.
Yes.
And then how does one respond?
You say Ilana.
Elane. What's the name of your language?
It is Pini from the northwest region of Cameroon.
Pini.
Yes.
So you are from Pini, and you speak Pini language.
And I speak Pini language.
We used to have very good tap water in Cameroon, but over the years there has been such a deterioration that the tap water basically comes out as mud, and so we are forced to buy drinking water. I don't think there's regions in Cameroon where tap water can actually be trusted.
Why do we buy water?
Because the pipe-borne water in Cameroon is horrible, especially in Yaoundé. You can't drink that. Yeah, it's gonna mess your system up.
I cannot speak for the rest of South Africa, but while I was in Pietermaritzburg, the water was quite drinkable. But here we buy water. You can have 10 liters of water, which costs approximately 1,200 francs on average. And to be honest guys, I really enjoyed making this video, and I'm thinking of turning this into a series on the channel because there was a lot more I had to share, but I didn't want to make the video too long. So you guys let me know what you think, and I'm gonna roll out more of such videos comparing other African countries. And if you've watched up to this point, there's no need to leave without liking the video if you enjoyed it, and also subscribe so we can grow this family.